Welcome back to Market on Close. I'm Sam Vardis on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange alongside Marley Cater in our Chicago headquarters. Let's welcome in our next guest and get some reaction to these Nvidia numbers. Keith Gangl, Senior Portfolio Manager at Gradient Investments. Thanks so much for joining us, Keith. What do you make of this earnings report?
It was fantastic. I think they checked all the boxes. It was a beat, a raise. Guidance, I think, is good enough. There's some whisper numbers up there, about $2 billion higher than revenue. They bracketed that, which is fantastic. They're talking about being sold out. Things are off the charts. I think Jensen's going to be very bullish on the call, and I think it's a good setup for the stock. I mean, the stock's pulled back about 10% going into earnings, so I think it's a good thing.
And Keith, we came into this with a pretty lofty hurdle, right? A lot of this pullback in these tech names, a lot of fear, mentioning of AI bubbles. Because this is sort of viewed as the litmus test for the AI infrastructure space, do you think that this is enough? Is it going to be enough? Or do we have to wait for the call and hear from Jensen Huang and how optimistic he sounds to know if it's going to be enough to quell some of those fears?
My initial take is it's going to be good enough, but we certainly have to see if you add some color on the call that kind of gives a little more color and flavor of how good it is, right? Because there's a lot of questions going around of, them kind of buying their customers, helping them out, kind of investing back in the ecosystem. So I think that needs to be addressed on the call. And I think they are definitely the leader in the AI space. So we want them to continue to keep innovating. The margins they had are fantastic as well. So I don't think there's anything right now to poke a hole on the earnings itself. But again, we have to wait till the call.
Do you think this is enough to help at least to counter some of the concerns around AI bubbles and valuations and circularity going on here? Or does none of that go away just because we've got a good report card out from Nvidia?
No, I think it's a good report card. I think it definitely dampens that bear case. I mean, again, the call is going to be very key to see what they have to say about some of those issues going on. But I don't think we're in an AI bubble. I mean, it could be maybe a little bit overheated in some areas, and it could be a little bit of maybe sideways trading. But this earnings report, if you take a step back and look at it, I mean, the earnings multiple or the PE multiple on the stock is 27 times for a company that's growing 50, 60%. That's fantastic growth. Now, that at some point in time, that will slow going forward. And I think that's what the market is telling you. And that's kind of why the stocks kind of trade sideways for the last month. But again, do you want to be invested with this company longer term or the next 3, 6, 12 months? I think the answer is yes.
And we're seeing these incredible data center revenue numbers. We knew they were going to be in focus. They came in better than expected here. How do we distinguish between true incremental demand or simple timing pull forward for the next quarter?
Yeah, we're going to have to get color on that. So that data center was up 66%. That's a big number. They're actually accelerating. Blackwell's off the chart. I assume they're going to start talking about their new architecture, Rubin, as well. So I think that could be the next catalyst driving it forward. So again, a lot of this, unfortunately, we have to wait till the call and get a little more color on it.
Yeah, when they talk about obviously some of the demand, I mean, the demand very much outstripping some of the supply. And, obviously with those words sold out, that very much, I suppose, speaks to some of that. Where do you think some of that demand can actually be mopped up? I mean, I was having a conversation today about, maybe some degradation in the moat because of the fact that, AMD, this might be an actual opportunity for them to sort of step in and pick up some of that demand. Is that what you see as far as the sort of broader story moving into 2026?
Yeah, I think, ultimately what's driving this whole thing, whether it's for NVIDIA or AMD or some of the other chipset guys, is demand from the data centers and all the big guys, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft. They're the ones driving the boat. And if their CapEx to continue going up, Meta was mentioned earlier that the CapEx is increasing as well. If those companies are increasing their CapEx to keep that moat, I think there's plenty of room for NVIDIA to play in, AMD, like you mentioned, Broadcom as well. So I think these players are all essential to keeping that AI theme going forward.
And Keith, these margin numbers, coming in right where the street wanted to see them, just below 74%, guiding for the coming quarter for them to be about 75%. As far as what you're looking for there in terms of the commentary, is it product mix? Is it pricing discipline, supply chain normalization? What sort of breakdown are you looking for to ensure they can maintain these margins?
Yeah, the biggest thing would be product mix and supply chain. So we need to hear about that. I mean, if they're constrained at some point, then that's going to affect their overall margins. So that's going to be key. And then the other product mix, right? H20 was down a little bit. China. We'll also hear a little bit of color on what's going on internationally, what's going on with China. Obviously, they've kind of taken out of their lot numbers, which is a good thing. Last quarter, he mentioned that 500 billion by the end of 2026. I'd like to get a little more color on that as well. How are we progressing? Is that towards the higher margin, newer chipsets, which it is? That would be good for the overall margins, which would, again, good for the overall stock.
Yeah, I mean, Jensen Huang talking about Blackwell chips, there's demand there being sort of off the charts, sans China. How much does China matter here? Because, I was just talking about that a little bit earlier, because I think, as far as what we're seeing this quarter, this time around, it didn't really matter because everybody had sort of priced in these earnings without that market. Does this then just become an added bonus as and when or if Nvidia is able to get their chips into China?
Yeah, that's the way I look at an added bonus. I think the one stepping up is Saudi Arabia. You saw Jensen on stage with Saudi Arabia and Elon Musk earlier today. I think things are positive. They're looking outside of China, and who knows what happens with China, but I would put that into the kind of potential catalyst that no one's talking about anymore. It's been taken out of the numbers, which, again, I feel good about that because that's not going to be a headwind if, things actually go to zero in China. I don't think they are, but potentially they slow down, and we'll wait and see.
All right, Keith Gangl, thank you so much for getting us across your thoughts and your reaction to this report card coming out from NVIDIA. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining us here. Keith Gangl, Gradient Investments. Up